I was just told superintendent, but actually I'm a deputy superintendent at the school. I'm going to be speaking sitting down. My apologies. And my school, Myojo Gakuen School, some of you may know, some of you may not know. It is also in Mitaka City. It's near Inogashira Park. It's a big park, and right near there, it is a private school. It was 93 years ago, so in 7 more years we'll have our centennial, and it's towards the older of the private schools, and it started as Seiji School, then became Myojo School, and so on and so forth. And there was a period of time in Japan where private schools were blooming, and we're one of the spin-off schools. So we are it's a 12-year school from first year grade through high school, and it's our mission to educate children who can be independent. So this school, we respect characteristics, the person's individuality, and so on and so forth. And that's what we have in mind when we do education for the children. And I myself did attend Myojo School for 12 years, from first grade through high school, and I been to university and did some work. Then I eventually returned to this school, and it's been 25 years since I've been back at this school, and there was 12 years of my life at this school. So 12 years and 25. You can see that I spent a lot of years at this school. Here, what I would like to talk about today is we lease the Myojo School's rooftop, so solar panels could be built. And this project initially came to us when one of the directors of our school had connections to the people who wanted to conduct this project. And there were also people on the board who were also interested. So I heard about the project, but initially, it wasn't that I heard about the story. So initially we said we can't lease the roof, and there was never a formal proposal to us saying they wanted to use our roof either. But there was a second time that they came back to us, and Inogashira Park, they marked their centennial this year, by the way. But what they do at Inogashira Park is they do this event where they take all the water out of the ponds and lakes, and they take out and they put things back in there, and by doing that, they kind of revive the environment. And there are volunteers who are involved in this, and one of the volunteer people were really involved in this community-based power generation, and that person also told me about this project as well. And this person told me that, oh, your school didn't lease your rooftop to us, and well, I didn't have much to say because I wasn't involved in that decision at the time. But so he kept talking to me about it, and the more I listened to him, it sounded like it has a lot of advantages for the children. That's what I thought the more I listened to him. So what I did is I decided to partake in the event and start to promote that project at our school. And the reason I thought we should convert our school to a power station is because, well, there's a couple of reasons. And the reason for being proactive in this project is as follows. The first reason is the children, the elementary school students, at the end of 6th grade, they have to write a graduation essay. And what this is all the things that they thought of over the 6 years. We want the children to put that together in one composition, and I've been reading those over the years, and almost always somebody talks about the environment in the composition. We always find a number of students who do that, and so therefore the school then has to think more about the environment, about that we have to what we have to do for the children who talks about those things in environment in the essay. We have to give them advice. So that was one of the reasons why we decided to lease part of our roof to generate solar power energy. And for both the children and the school, we thought it was meaningful to do something like that for one of those reasons. It should be put into one of our policy under our mission statement. I thought this was important. So I pushed the implementation, this installation of this panel and the rooftop. And the second point that I want to tell you, I also teach sciences. And science is about experimentation. You get results. Sometimes the results aren't tangible, then it's easy to do things. But sometimes electricity, air, those things are not visible to the eye. It's hard to explain that to people who can't see the results. And children won't really be convinced if the results are not convinced. So even how much effort we put into explanations, it doesn't really it's hard to get some reaction out of students. That's a continuing problem issue for us, and as all of you know, electricity, you can't see it. But to move on with what I'm trying to tell you here is we put a panel, a monitor that manages all of the panels, and that panel could tell you at a glance how many watts are being used per so-and-so units. And then, well, the electricity itself, you can't see it, but through the monitor, you could tell how much power is getting generated on the school's rooftops, and how much more bigger it is than the electricity is used at home. Children can use that to frame their mind more. So that's like another reason for leasing our rooftop to the solar power project. And furthermore, this is another complex thing to explain, but at my school's rooftop, we generate electricity, and what we do with them is we don't have Tokyo Power Company buy them from us. We just lease the rooftop to a particular party, and what is happening is well, we give it to another party, and the other party sells it to Tokyo Electric, but that's what's happening. But anyways, and we expect that they would, distribute it, that company would distribute it to people in the community. So we have in mind, so that's the kind of things that we are doing with the power that is generated on our rooftops. Furthermore, so when thinking about environment, we don't tell the children anything political, but since 311, radiation is becoming an issue that cannot be ignored. So even in the science class, we talk about what is radiation. We talk about that, well, to our 6th graders at least. And if we're going to continue to do that, then we want also for our children to think about whether the power that we generate in our country is good for us or not. So that's another reason for having a power station on top of our roofs. So when we were setting up the solar panels on the roof, it didn't go smoothly. There's certain things that I didn't tell people here as well. So there's certain things that he will hear for the first time as well. But there were some issues that he may be surprised to hear about. One of the minor issues were that when the panels were being set, you have to punch a hole in the wall no matter what. So if there is leaks in the roof, then who's going to guarantee that? Who's going to pay for that? And another thing is, if there is typhoon or strong winds, wouldn't those roofs fly off and perhaps hit the kids who are playing on the ground? Then that's a big issue. And about the issue of leaks from holes that you punch in the roof, we found ways to get around that. And with regard to strong winds and typhoons, the worries about those issues, what we decided to do is, because we have a private school, we have people coming from different areas. And when there is typhoons, big storms in Japan, the school immediately gets closed. So even if a rooftop panel, like one panel falls onto the ground, there'll be nobody there, so it's not going to hurt anyone. So those are the little things that we thought about and did. But anyways, those are the explanations that the explanations I just gave you are the ones that I had to explain to the PTA and other educational boards. But what I was most worried about is the following. So environmental issues. I talked about the environmental issues so far, and I told you that I talk about issues to students in the science class, but it's not, everyone doesn't think like me at school, and I knew that. So I had to do a lot of, I was worried that when I had to explain all of this to other teachers, they would react negatively to me. But a lot of people at the teachers meetings, they talked about electromagnetic waves. People didn't know how much impact the electromagnetic waves would have. I don't know whether I should be explaining this in general means, but I thought a lot of teachers tend to be conservative. So they're more passive, meaning they're not proactive in doing something new for the organization. So when somebody says, let's do something new, somebody always steps in and say, hey, let's not move too quickly there. And with regard to the electromagnetic waves, how much negative impact does it have? How much impact would it have on the children? Those issues were discussed heavily at the meetings. And today around noon, PV Net's Mr. Tanaka, I think he touched upon that issue as well, but I discussed this matter with Mr. Tanaka, and he told me that with regard to the roof and a lot of but he said there'll be almost no electromagnetic impact, negative impact upon people, and I explained that to the Teachers Association, the teachers group, and they got convinced. No one really aggressively fought me, but there's some people still that said, why we don't have to become a power station ourselves, we're a school. So you could kind of tell that from, well, some people would say that, some people would still kind of look like they are trying to say that. So when this suggestion proposal came to me, I really wanted to realize that, and I knew some people weren't all for it, but I did my best to move the project forwards. And the biggest issue was the board of directors. and I spoke to a lot of people who were doing community power station work, and they were telling me that at the very end, they also had their own board of directors that slammed it down, and they wouldn't let the project, they wouldn't greenlight the project. So I was also worried that my school's board of directors would shut me down as well. And the teachers and other faculties of the school, they have this particular thinking. I am a private school. There's a lot of people who are alumni who become board members, but some people on the board are on a company that would have a conflict of interest with the solar power station project, and there's some people don't like us to start aligning with certain entities and so on. So with all that in mind, what we try to do is we try to ally with the community development partner. And so what I'm trying to say here is we have to explain that we're an organization that we're trying to make profit out of this project, and after explaining that strenuously, the board of directors approved us, and in order to convince the board of directors, what I explained to them is, for one, there's a number of points, but for one, we had to tell them that it's good for the children, and we're using the economic energy. Those are the things that I explained, and we educate our children as well about energy, but we tell them that this is a new type of energy that has a better safety aspect to it. And I don't want to talk too much about radiation with them, but in terms of radiation risk, solar power has less radiation risk when you compare it to other powers. And also on the rooftops, we have nothing set up, so that means and some schools have their garden, like a garden on the rooftop, or some facilities on the rooftop. But our rooftop has nothing on the rooftop, just like air conditioning units and set up there. But anyways, so because we have no children wouldn't go up there, no one was against us setting up panels on the rooftop. But another point that was helped our argument is when school is an evacuation site when disasters happen. Well, that's how it is in Japan. So when something happens to children, we have to have the children sleep and stay in school because it's an evacuation site if some natural disaster ever strikes. So in that case, well, we have food, emergency food and whatnot in our school, but with regard to power, we do not have any way of providing power. We don't have backup power, so that was another issue. We had to talk to one of the local power companies and make an arrangement. So so whenever something like I had to talk to the community power company, and we signed a contract saying that in the case of disaster we would work with our own power in the reserve and use that to generate power for ourselves, and they agreed to that. But in the case that because of some natural disaster, if something happens, we did explain to not just the community power company, but other people concerned about the school, that we would use that solar power as backup to communicate with different types of people. But anyways, I just kept explaining to different people about what does where the benefits of having the rooftop solar power station. and the panel, if we look at it, it says that we already produce 50,000 kilowatts. I don't know whether this figure is big or not, but I think we have to perhaps go by the area that we use to install this solar power panels. But I think this number is a pretty good number. And going forwards, the school has to think about environmental issues, and I want people not to think that we would like to continue to use any open spaces. If the rooftop is not used, then rooftop should be used at schools to have like a solar panel power station. But if it's a public school, it's hard to do that. But we're a private school, so it's easier. So if there are other private schools that have free space to build a solar power solar power generation station, then I think that's what everyone should try to do. And other community power companies, if I think we should have more community local power stations, then the more we could have, I think that will brighten our future. When I came here initially, I spoke to the panelers. They're so impressive people. I thought I felt out of place at the beginning, but I spoke to many people, but he told me just please come and talk about the difficulties he had about installation of the solar panel station. So that's my report. Thank you for listening.